Hi, I'm Dr. Diane Hamilton, and I'm the CEO of Tenera, which is a media and consulting-based company. And I'm super excited to speak to you about perception, because perception ties into everything we're trying to achieve in the workplace, from engagement, innovation, and so much more. So I hope you join me. I became interested in perception after my work with studying curiosity. I found out that with curiosity, there was a lot of questions that needed to be asked that weren't being asked. And because of that, we were all kind of seeing things in a different way. And perception to me is not just about whether you see the gold dress or the blue dress on the meme online. It's about what you're hearing and how you're perceiving information. And in the workplace, that is so critical to our success, because if we're all in a different reality, then it's very difficult for everybody to get to the same end goal. So that was pretty much what led to my interest in perception. But I've been focused on a lot of behavioral issues throughout my career, from writing my dissertation on emotional intelligence to my work with curiosity and beyond. I really think that all of those aspects are what help us be successful at work. Perception is pretty much tied to everything we do at work. It's something that I look at in terms of our outcomes, our goals, everything that we're trying to achieve is our perception of the value of it, right? And so how we interact with one another can be very challenging, because if we don't agree on what we think the end goal is or what we're trying to accomplish, then we're going to have conflict, we're going to have poor engagement, we're going to have poor innovation. All the things that they're trying to achieve at work are basically tied back to how important is it to me as the employee? What do I see it as a value, and how it ties into the culture? I've seen so many organizations where it's not spelled out to them, to employees very clearly, why they're doing what they're doing. And their perception of their job, their tasks, their responsibilities is critical to achieving the end goals. It was interesting to do the research, because I looked at the factors that impacted curiosity, and it was more of things. And when I looked at the things that impacted perception, it was more of a process. And the factors that affected this process were really what you went through to come up with your end perception. So I have EPIC as the acronym to help you remember it. It's evaluate, predict, interpret, and correlate to make a conclusion. And that's the steps we go through when we end up having our end result of how we perceive things. And if you don't recognize the factors that impact each of those steps, then it's very difficult for us to get to be on the same page. So what my research helped do is look at some of the aspects that fall into the evaluation stage, the prediction, interpretation, and correlation stage. And we have to take all these factors into account before we can communicate effectively. Well, I work with organizations on perception, curiosity, and a bunch of other soft skills related issues, with giving assessments to them to give them an idea of how much these factors are impacting different aspects of how they perceive. So when I go to organizations, we do assessments. And so we have a kind of a two-part training where we work on the individual, but also look at what other perception issues are there within the organization, and kind of whiteboard out what those issues are for the organization as a whole, and give back some helpful guidelines to the trainers, and that goes up to leadership. So we find out how can we improve our perception as a company as a whole as well. Intelligence, as we know from Howard Gardner, it comes in different forms. And yes, I do agree that intelligence does impact our perception, specifically not just your IQ, but your EQ, your emotional quotient, your CQ for curiosity quotient, and your CQ for cultural quotient. These are very important aspects of how we see the world, see the way we perceive things, and how others perceive things. And it's through recognizing that all these different factors can impact how we perceive the messages that we get from other people when we're talking one-on-one. If our emotional intelligence isn't there, for example, if we have a low level, we might lack empathy and not be able to have a real good grasp of what somebody else is feeling and why they're coming at something from a certain way. And for perception, a lot of it is basically being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see things from a different perspective. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. Well, they align very much in terms of, I looked at the factors that impacted curiosity and I looked at the factors that impacted perception. What I found with perception is that curiosity was a component of it, because if you're not asking questions, you're not learning about yourself, you're not learning about others, you're not able to do all the predicting and interpreting types of things that go on in the perception process. And if you look at it like baking a cake, your end goal is to have a cake, right? If you're baking a cake, you have flour and oil and eggs, and you mix it together, you put it in a pan, you put it in the oven, you want cake. But if you don't turn on the oven, you don't get cake. You get something else that's not very good, right? So in the working world, instead of cake, you want productivity and success, money, basically, that's your cake. You know that companies are worried about all these ingredients, such as engagement, motivation, innovation. All these things are mixing together. They're putting in the oven, but if they forget to turn on the oven, they don't get their cake, right? They don't get that money. And that oven, that spark, is curiosity. So if you start with curiosity, it helps you build your perception, which helps you, that's one of those ingredients that we're mixing to end up with our cake.